We're going live to Venezuela for the inauguration of the National Assembly for the term 2026-2031.
Bien, le recordamos a las personas que nos sintonizan a esta hora que se da inicio a esta
Remind people
convocatoria de
joining us at this time that this is the inauguration of the National Assembly of Venezuela, established by the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic. The lawmakers that take office right now in their positions were elected in last year's legislative elections. Let's listen.
For the constitutional period of 2026-2031, this act is taking place in times that are defined by the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and according to the norms of the internal constitution. The country and the world is going through a special situation, a complex situation, demanding. The President of the Republic of Venezuela has been kidnapped, Nicolás Maduro Moros, by the government of the United States in an attack, a horrific attack, barbaric and cowardly, in a fascist way, by the Yankee imperialism that is the main enemy, the fundamental enemy of the people of Venezuela, of the region and the world. Our people will overcome the situation. The imperialism is at a decadent situation and will go to war and fascism. In these circumstances, the Constitutional Chamber of the Supreme Court has ordered the designation of teleSUR Rodriguez as acting president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. We will overcome as a people and a Venezuelan nation this situation. The poet Antonio Machado says, "It's not tomorrow, nor yesterday, the destiny." After all, it continues to be true that until now, no human being has seen tomorrow, that we can only sense the future, and that the virtuous people will never be defeated. Luckily, we have the preamble of the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela by the poet Gustavo Pereira. The people of Venezuela, in exercise of its creative powers and summoning the protection of God and the historic example of our liberator Simón Bolívar, in heroism and sacrifice of our ancestors and those who came before us for this sovereign nation, with the objective of refounding the Republic to establish a democratic society, participative society, protagonist of multiple ethnicities and cultures, in a state of justice, federal and decentralized, that will consolidate the values of freedom, independence, peace, solidarity, and common good, the territorial integrity, coexistence, and the empire of law for this and coming generations. Let make sure that the right to life and work, culture, education, social justice, and equality with no discrimination and no subordination will be in effect, and promoting peaceful coexistence among the nations and consolidating Latin American integration according to the principle of non-intervention and self-determination of the peoples, the universal guarantee and indivisible of human rights, the democratization of international society, and nuclear disarmament, ecological equilibrium, and environmental measures as common patrimony of mankind. 27 years ago, this people ratified these principles, these values, and this is our charter. The seat of Deputy Cilia Flores, that the President that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, pretends to be the General Attorney, the Judge, and the police of the world. From the Bolivarian Venezuela, we say you will not be able to. And we will develop, finally, all solidarity so that our legitimate president, Nicolás Maduro, will come back victorious to Miraflores. I wanted to give these opening words. I thought this was prudent and convenient. We now will proceed to the process of installation, inauguration of this National Assembly. We will designate
into the opening statements of the directors for debates of the Venezuelan parliament as this installation begins. During his opening words, he reaffirmed the commitment of the lawmakers of Venezuela to the Bolivarian Revolution and the projects that have been developed. Carolina Garcia has been designated as acting secretary of this installation session on this January 5th, 2026, as established in the internal rules of the Venezuelan parliament to begin this installation ceremony for this new legislative period.
We'll proceed now to designate a special commission integrated by the following deputies: Giuseppe Adefandrero, América Pérez, José Alvarado, Juan Carlos Alvarado, in order to examine the credentials according to the Article 5 of the Rules of the National Assembly. We will proceed immediately to the reviewing and the process to move forward.
Recordamos a las personas que a esta hora nos sintonizan que, como lo establece el reglamento para el desarrollo de esta sesión de
The
instalación,
rules of
el
law
director
of
de
this
debates
ceremony,
en este caso,
the
el
director
diputado
of debates
Soto
for the
Rojas, pues,
parliamentarian
ha designado
session
una
here for the
secretaria
National Assembly, the
accidental
installation
que ha sido
of
la
this legislative
diputada
session for
Carolina
2026-2031.
García
A special
para el
commission is
desarrollo de
being
esta sesión de
designated
instalación.
for this
Seguidamente,
development
pues,
of
se ha
this
designado una
installation,
comisión
and a
especial
commission is
integrada
also being
por el
designated
diputado Giuseppe Alessandrero,
by
el diputado
different
América
members
Pérez,
of
el
Parliament to
diputado
continue as
José
well with the
Alvarado para
corresponding
examinar
activities,
las
and they will
credenciales conforme
examine
ya lo
the
establecido en el
credentials
artículo
according to what is
5
established
del reglamento
in
interior de
the
debates de la
internal
Asamblea
rules of the
Nacional.
National
Esto
Assembly to
conforme a
proceed
este
with the installation, as we were saying,
periodo
of
de
this
sesiones
new
que
session,
inicia
legislative
este
session
5
of
de
this
enero.
newly
Haciendo un recuento
National
de los
Assembly for the
iniciativas
year
que se han realizado
2026-2031. We must recall that all the deputies that were elected, that are present here, that are taking their office for this legislative period, were elected in democratic elections last year, where the Simón Bolívar, Great Patriotic Poet, achieved important victories in all the different states of Venezuela. The project for this National Assembly is to continue to strengthen the project for the social well-being of the people, for the social welfare, in different reforms for the different laws for the health sector and social sectors, and more policies to continue to protect the revolutionary project and the investments of the Bolivarian Revolution in different acts and actions undertaken to continue helping the Venezuelan people to overcome their needs. Now, this is the opening statements from this National Assembly made clear what was going to happen in the upcoming years. We were going to legislate to continue strengthening the Bolivarian project and, of course, demanding the immediate return of President Nicolas Maduro and first combatant Silvia Flores, who are currently kidnapped in the United States by U.S. forces. We must remember that all this installation is taking place in a context where last Saturday in the early mornings the United States carried out an illegal criminal attacks on the sovereignty of Venezuela, and also proceeded with the kidnapping of the President Nicolas Maduro and first combatant, who are currently being held in the United States. The deputies at the beginning, they clearly denounced these criminal actions. They denounced the intentions of the United States to take over natural resources of the Venezuelan people, to control the Venezuelan people. And we were listening the opening statements of the director of debates, how the Venezuelan people would resist, they would not surrender, and they said that they were ready, and they condemned the fact that the head of the White House right now, the current head of the White House, Donald Trump, aims to act as judge and jury of the world and implement their policies across the different sovereign nations of the region, sending a very clear message to the president, the U.S. president, that in Venezuela they will not be able to do so, since Venezuela remains strong and standing still in defense of their values, in defense of their sovereignty and their independence. So we are live, as we were saying, here with images coming from the Legislative Palace in the capital in Caracas for this installation ceremony. What is happening right now is the special commission that was designated, as we were listening. First, the head of the current leader of this event, the director of debates, designated a special secretary, an acting secretary for the whole installation ceremony, and also then proceeded to designate a special commissions which currently left the room, the hemicycle, and are currently going over all the different credentials, this is all part of the corresponding actions, the protocol established by the rule of law of the National Assembly as part of this process of the installation of this new legislative assembly, which will legislate for the next 5 years for the term 2026-2031. This is the work of the Assembly in the past 5 years has been described by the different participants as outstanding and continued in the path of the strengthening and recovery of the National Assembly. We must recall that the National Assembly came from a period where, as denounced by the Venezuelan authorities, was hijacked by far-right opposition forces when they created an assembly that went completely against the interests of the Venezuelan people as a whole. And with the recovery of the National Assembly, with the last 5 years legislation, little by little, with the different reforms and projects and bills that were approved, little by little that recovery process began, and with the implementations of new laws and the approval of new bills that would permit the strengthening not only of the welfare of the Venezuelan people in the social aspect, but in different sectors like this health, culture, and also in the investment in the economy, which has been an important focus for the Bolivarian government, for the Venezuelan government in the past 5 years, especially coming out from the pandemic, which caused havoc in the economies of the countries of the world, and in particular in Venezuela, that it had something besides the pandemic, also with the implementation of U.S. coercive measures, which were strengthened during this very delicate time of the pandemic. They were strengthened to try to suffocate the Venezuelan people, to try to make them kneel. But as the evidence has proven in these past 5 years, the Venezuelan people were able to overcome all these obstacles, and little by little they have been recovering the economy in this process. And all that came also as well thanks to the different legislative processes, the different policies that were approved coming out from this National Assembly in these past 5 years for the different projects in terms of the economic investment, and the different projects that were presented as well by President Nicolas Maduro. We must remember the 7 transformation plans, which was presented by President Nicolas Maduro as a government plan to continue in the transformation of the different sectors of the Venezuelan, not only economy, in different sectors, to enhance the welfare of the Venezuelan people and their way of life. Also with the implementation and the approval of the 14 productive engines, which drove the Venezuelan economy to new standards, with new high standards, as we have reported and has been reported not only by Venezuelan authorities but also by foreign international organizations. Venezuela is a country that registers the most growth in terms of its economy in the past year, in 2025, and all this came as a result of all the different policies and investment strategies and economic transformations that were implemented during these last 5 years. In this case, the highlights are the 14 productive engines which were also promoted by President Nicolas Maduro, which aims to revitalize and strengthen the Venezuelan production powerhouse. The production power turned in Venezuela into a production powerhouse. We must recall that as of now, Venezuela has 100% of almost 100% of its food production guarantee, of the basic basket guaranteed, produced within Venezuela itself, and not only food, also in different technological fields, in different aspects. Venezuela has grown in its production with the aim, the strategy came to try to decrease Venezuela's dependence on oil revenues, which has also been recovered. We must recall that following the sanctions from 2018-2019, the oil revenue of the Venezuelan people, of Venezuela as a country, were reduced by 99% due to the coercive, very harsh sanctions imposed by the United States, illegal sanctions imposed by the United States against Venezuela. And we must reiterate that all these actions are illegal because, according to international law, the only body that is permitted to implement any kind of sanctions against any sovereign nations is the United Nations Security Council, and said sanctions that have been imposed against Venezuela since these blockades, this economic siege, has been done unilaterally by the United States, going against all international norms and rules that govern over the relations of sovereign states, among sovereign states. And with that in mind, to decrease the dependence of the Venezuelan economy on oil, that's why they began to strengthen and revitalize these other sectors, as is fruit production and other industries like tourism, to be able to have more sources of incomes for the later investment in more social projects. Also, an important aspect of the last couple of years was the development of the commune system, which is also a new way of governance that is being implemented by the Bolivarian Revolution, which is a way to give more direct power to the people in the communes so that they can be part of the decision-making policies and of decision-making of where to better invest those resources that are generated from their communes as well from the government, where to best invest in accordance to the needs of every commune, since every commune has their own particular needs. They don't, among themselves, they all have specific needs, and who better knows what those needs are than the people that live in said communes. And with all these new public consultations that were held over the past couple of years, the people themselves were able to be part of that decision-making process, where to invest those resources that were earned, that were created thanks to the new policies and production policies implemented by the Bolivarian Revolution and approved by the National Assembly, as we were saying, that was in the path of recovering everything that had been lost from the previous assembly, which was hijacked by the far-right opposition completely. Now, what we recall that what we are doing, what is happening right now here at this Legislative Palace, is the installation of this new assembly, for the legislative period of 2026-2031. The deputies that we were seeing on the screen sitting on their spots were all elected democratically in last year's legislative elections that were held across the nation, and for the first time also they were held in the Guayana Esequiba territory, where also the great patriotic Paul Simon Bolivar achieved important victories in this legislative assembly, securing an overwhelming majority of the seats here at the National Assembly. What is happening right now, the special commission that was designated by the Director of Debates of the National Assembly is going over the credentials of all these deputies, of the credentials of the deputies that accredit them as the elected deputies to this National Assembly. This is all part of the corresponding protocols for the installation of the new assembly. So we are waiting for that process to conclude, for that special commission that was just designated to conclude going over, reviewing all those credentials so that the installation process can continue. And once the installation process continues, the deputies here present at the National Assembly will carry on with electing the president of the National Assembly, the different secretaries, the vice president, the different offices that are within the National Assembly, which will of course be elected here by majority, by the votes of the deputies present here today. As part also as in a way as honoring a deputy that for the circumstances that we have described in these past couple of days, which is the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro and first combatant Cilia Flores. As we know, Cilia Flores was also an elected deputy to this National Assembly, and as a way to honor, to make sure that she is present in spirit here with the National Assembly, they left open the seat for the National Assembly with her name. We were able to see that in some shots of the image before, with the close-up where she would have been sitting with her name, also with the placard with her name. But as we know, due to the kidnapping of both the president and the first combatant, she is not able to be here, and this is something that is being denounced and has been denounced and will continue to be denounced by this National Assembly here for those illegal criminal actions that put at risk the world order, as many authorities, not only in Venezuela and across the world, have been saying. The actions that the United States committed on early hours of Saturday put at risk the world order and put also in evidence the inefficiency of the international systems like the United Nations General Assembly and the United Nations Security Council to prevent and to enforce the rule of law in the current context of international world order, because it's setting the precedent that the United States has carte blanche to do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, to achieve whatever objective they have, which in this case has been denounced for the past years, and very emphatically for the past 28 weeks since the U.S. began its military deployment in the Caribbean, is what they want, and it has been already also clearly said by the U.S. President Donald Trump himself, is to control the vast wealth in resources that Venezuela has, because we must recall that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. Over 300 billion barrels of oil are currently sitting under Venezuelan soil and under its territorial waters, and that oil is what the United States really wants in all these illegal actions that is committing. And not only the oil, Venezuela is also home, its soil, its land is also home to vast resources in terms of forestry, in terms of water, of drinking water, of gold, of rare earth minerals, which, as we know, is all very crucial for the technology today. And the control of these resources is what's really driving the imperialist actions of the United States. As we are saying now in our images, that special commission that was designated, as we were saying, to go over the credentials of the deputies present here is returning to the hemicircle, is returning to the main hall of this National Assembly, the Legislative Palace, and very soon the process, the installation of the Assembly will resume and will continue in accordance to the internal ruling of the National Assembly. We're going to be staying here live, of course, transmitting all this information as it happens to our audience. We're seeing the deputies returning to their seats, to their corresponding seats that were in that special commission designated at the beginning following the opening statements of the Assembly. So as we were saying, the National Assembly right now is coming together, focused in one clear objective, which is the return of President Nicolas Maduro, first combatant. Let's continue listening to the words of the Director of Debates. He's not speaking. It seems that he will resume speaking very soon. For the moment, we stay here as the installation of this National Assembly begins. Let's listen.
The special commissions to go over the credentials of the elected deputies has concluded. Giuseppe Alessandrello will read the reviewing of these credentials. Mr. Director of Debate, members of the National Assembly, I will read the act of the review of the credentials in this palace, seat of the National Assembly of Venezuela, on January 5th, 2026, at 12 p.m. in this inauguration session for the period 2026-2031, once designated the Director of Debate, Fernando Soto Rojas, the Secretary, Carolina Garcia, and also in presence of elected deputies of the National Assembly, the Director of Debate designed and elected a commission integrated by the following: Giuseppe Alejandrin, America Perez, John Alvarado, Carlos Alvarado, Nora Bracho, for the reviewing of the credentials as established in the Article 5 within the rules of the National Assembly of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Once this procedure is completed, the special commission has informed that the credentials are conforming to the rules of all the elected members except for one, that is Cilia Flores. In this act will be formally presented by the members. Members of the National Assembly, continue the procedure. According to the special commission to review these special credentials, we inform that we have an according quorum. We are opening the session. We will inform the goal of the day for this session. Purpose: inauguration of the legislative period 2026-2031 and the annual period for ordinary sessions 2026-2027. For today, 1. Election and swearing in for the members of the 2026-2031 members of the Parliament for the National Republic of Venezuela, according to the Article 194 of the Constitution and in consistency with the Article 7, 8, 9, and 11 of the Rules of Debate. Citizens and Secretary, let's read the Article 194 of the Constitution of Venezuela and the articles of the Rules of Debate related to the election of the Board of the National Assembly. Constitution of Venezuela, Article 194. The Assembly will elect a president and 2 vice presidents, a secretary, and a subsecretary outside of its seat for a period of 1 year. The rules will apply also for the absences, temporary absences. Rules for the debate, election for the board. At the beginning of the constitutional period and every ordinary period, the National Assembly will elect from the board, will elect the board that will be elected by the members of the National Assembly, who has been proposed and obtained the greater part of the votes will be elected. Article 8 for the proposing and election. The plenary of the National Assembly, out of all the charges that will be elected, for the proposing, the national deputy will propose the arguments for the proposal and will also have 3 other minutes to ratify the proposals that will be submitted for voting. The voting will be on each one of the charges, and the deputy member will be elected with the highest number of votes. If there should be a tie, the same procedure will be respected, and only those who had tied on the first place will proceed to that process. If not, it will proceed to a new procedure in the coming 48 hours. Rules are clear and categorical. We open the process of proposal for the directive board, and for that, I give my word to lawmaker Nicolás Maduro Guerra. Deputies and members of the National Assembly, Director of Debate, the opposition as well. I am so happy that you are here because our country needs dialogue and understanding. Our fellow lawmakers, brothers, today we are with a great absence, an important absence. And the people of Venezuela that I greet and I hug from here, I tell you that we are committed to defend the dignity of Venezuela. I greet the millions who are on the streets right now and in the world as well, and who have mobilized for our country, for the President Nicolás Maduro, for Deputy Member Cilia Flores. Today I speak, and I wrote this because it is not easy to do this in these circumstances. My dad, the President Nicolás Maduro Moros, and my second mom, Deputy Member Cilia Flores, have been kidnapped. With both of them, I grew up with the love of a home that was profoundly Bolivarian, and that has joined us, my brothers and sisters, my sons and daughters. I was forged in that revolutionary struggle for the building of that dream for Bolivar and Chavez, and that has always been the dream of my dad, Nicolás Maduro. Nicolás Maduro Moros is president, but he is also a father, a worker, an educator from whom I learned to fight. He's a loving grandfather. He's a great comrade and a friend of friends. Cilia Flores, a great woman, mother, dedicated and abnegated mother to her sons and daughters and grandsons, a great lawyer that never lost a case in all the years of exercise, a great lawmaker, and a great grandmother. For knowing them deeply, I know that they are great human beings, and their only crime is being great revolutionaries that love the country and will not sell it out and will not sell themselves out. From them, I learned serenity, the serenity that we see in the president, and the peace that we get from having a great hope that truth will prevail. And because of that, I have great faith as believer in our great God. The true man who owns that destiny of Venezuela is God. And sooner rather than later, it will be with us. And thanks to the people who are mobilizing, they will come back. Our eyes will see that. We will witness that historical moment. Do not doubt that that will happen. In the name of God, Almighty God, we ask that of Him, and He will deliver. Amen. President Nicolás Maduro, it's not a circumstantial leader. He is part of a historic generation that was forged in the struggle for the independence. He was formed by Hugo Chavez in the ethics of responsibility, the awareness of sacrifice, and the certainty that the homeland is always above any personal gain. That is why even in the face of the greatest aggression, we know and we see that he will maintain firm, serene, and according to the great historical challenge that he's living. He knows his role in history, and he showed us the sign, the victorious sign that we need to conquer. They don't kidnap a man. They are challenging and provoking a complete generation. And if they are Monroe, we are Simón Bolívar.
El derecho internacional
The international law
ha sido ultrajado,
has been violated.
es despreciado y fue violado en todos sus
It
sentidos.
has been violated in all its sense. International law does not protect
Seres humanos.
charges or symbols. It protects human beings.
No deja de ser padre, abuelo y ciudadano.
A president does not
Quienes hoy
continue to be a grandfather, a father,
agreden a Venezuela
also with its charge, and who are
principios básicos
charging against that, are charging against basic principles of humanity that the world swore to protect after the great tragedies of last century. The international law did not come around in order to protect the powerful, but to contain it.
civilizatoria
It's a conquest of a civilization in order to prevent that the law of the jungle will rule over the world. So we are not in the face of one more political conflict, but a dangerous regression for the world order. That is why, with great responsibility, we say that Venezuela is not fighting for its own land or its own resources, but for the well-being and the existence of humanity itself. International law exists in order to put a restraint to empires, and if that is violated, we'll go back to the law of the jungle, and no country is safe. Today, it's Venezuela, but tomorrow it could be any other nation that is not willing to bow down to foreign powers. This is not a regional problem. This is a threat to humanity and international stability. Today, the world, its peoples, its governments, we need to make a decision. We need to raise our voices for peace, for respect to international law, for sovereignty, for our right to exist, or to be silenced through fear. Peoples of the world, international solidarity with Nicolas, with Cilia, with Venezuela is not an optional political decision. It's your right in terms of politics and jurisdiction. Your silence is an accomplice with that aggression against the international law that you say you defend. Ambassadors from the world, this is not an bilateral tensions, but this is a great violation of the entire international system. In Venezuela, the outrage of our people is not desperation, it's historical conscience, and we need to transform that outrage into mobilization and political clarity so that that outrage will become invincible. To defend Venezuela today is to defend the right to every people in the world to exist. I take this place to say that my name has been put, just as the president and Cilia Flores, in the same accusations for which they were kidnapped. My family is being persecuted because they cannot buy us. My family is made up of men and women with righteous values, and we are here to defend Venezuela on any circumstances and to maintain peace in the country, to join our people always in anything that we need to do in order for Venezuela to be in peace, powerful, so that the Venezuelan family can move on. That is our job, that is our sin. We know that with the legal and physical aggression, they will try to work with a narrative, and they always have worked with lies, fabricating wrongful narratives that harm the free peoples. Venezuela is not naive. We know of those practices. We are not surprised by that. Venezuelan people are not surprised by lies. We get ahead of them and we know how to conquer them. My fellow lawmakers, lies have always been the arms of imperialism, but now they found a people that are aware, that have been formed by Chavez and Maduro with a great historical and political awareness. The Venezuelan people cannot be manipulated. There is too much awareness, too much organization, too much clarity of what's at stake right now. And those who fight deserve the victory. The political awareness is neutralizing the imperialist propaganda. The Bolivarian Revolution is not dependent on a moment, but it's a solid process that has been inherited by Chavez and by Maduro, with a leadership that perfectly knows the role they need to play in each circumstance. Our purpose is clear: to maintain permanent mobilization of the people in defense of the Bolivarian project that today is being led legitimately by the institutions of the country. This is not a mobilization of hate, but of conviction, not desperation, but historical clarity. Today, I come here with our Bolivarian cause to speak to you from our heart about Venezuela's deepest desire to continue on the road of peace and peaceful coexistence, to guarantee our right to development with no external threats and with balanced and respectful international relations. We do not ask anything else, that they will leave us alone for our republican institutions to continue to develop so that our economy can grow and our people can be happy. We deserve peace. In that collective dream, the world needs to recognize that the National Assembly is an instrument of the Venezuelan people that have served and will continue to serve to national peace and cooperation among countries. This sovereign institution, we use it to continue to live without threats and move on in international cooperation to live in peace. This international context is marking this election that we see today. We need to move on in the international relations with respect with other countries based on the principles of non-interference and respect between nations that can lead us, as President Nicolás Maduro Moros has said, and our acting president has reinstated in this, that we need to continue with respectful relations with every country in the world, in the region, with the United States as well, like equals, without submissions and without interference. We are not asking for any privileges, but we are demanding respect. This is a sovereign decision. We want international relations with everyone, with no threats, based on respect. I think that the election of the National Assembly of today needs to ratify that road that Venezuela is choosing with all the peoples of the world, and the board that we are choosing today is a message for the world of our internal will to guarantee the road of respect, the unity of Venezuelans in the face of the threats and attempts to hinder the economical growth for this 25 years. For this reason, and taking on this responsibility of speaking on behalf of the revolutionary forces that are here in these seats, I will propose the following names for the elected seats. For the presidency of the National Assembly, I want to propose an important colleague with a large tradition in the medical sphere, a great fighter and a father dedicated to their sons and daughters, a great leader that has accompanied the lawmakers' duty and the dialogue of international duties, and a man that is greatly loyal to the Bolivarian Revolution. With this description, I present who's my uncle at heart, our colleague Jorge Rodriguez, as the President of National Assembly.
For the
first vice presidency of the National Assembly, I want to call on a colleague and brother that has formed on one of the duties that makes us proud in international forums. Thanks to his study in the sports arena, we now have more medals than we ever had in the Fourth Republic. It's a good father, a great neighbor, a good leader with great hearing abilities. From Katia, I want to propose that we ratify Pedro Infante for the first vice presidency of the National Assembly.
En la segunda
In the
vicepresidencia,
second vice presidency,
quiero reconocer las
I
capacidades
want to
discursivas y
acknowledge
académicas
the
de una joven
academic
mujer
and
que conozco
discursive
desde que yo era muy muchacho,
goals and
que ha demostrado
achievements
un
of
amplio
a young
compromiso
woman that
en la
I've known
inclusión
for
orgánica de
years
un
that have
movimiento
shown
amplio de
great
la juventud
commitment
en todo
in
el
the
país,
youth movement across the
con base
country,
social fuerte que sirve
with
para
a
la
great
inclusión
social
de muchas
base that
corrientes
is
y voluntades
good for
soberanas.
the
Es un
inclusion of
cuadro que
many
cada reto que ha
currents.
tenido en sus manos ha demostrado talento,
Every time
compromiso,
she has
lealtad y
faced a
esfuerzo,
challenge, she has shown
destacándose
her
por su
commitment and
trabajo
his
en la juventud. Una
efforts.
mujer,
A
una mujer
woman,
para la segunda
a
vicepresidencia, la
woman for
compañera
the
Grecia
second vice
Colmenares.
presidency, our comrade Grecia Colmenares
Del Táchira.
from Táchira.
En nombre de todos los colegas diputados,
In the name of
agradezco la
all
dedicación y
the
esfuerzo
lawmakers,
y mi admiración a la diputada América
thank you
Pérez
for all your
para el desarrollo de la tarea
efforts for America
legislativa
Perez as well,
y sé
for
que
her
seguirá destacándose como
duties. I
siempre.
know that she will continue to
Colegas diputados y
do everything
diputadas,
as well. As always,
el
my
2026 ha
colleagues,
comenzado con el
2026
reto
has
de fortalecer
begun
nuestra
with the
soberanía
great
nacional
challenge of
y
strengthening
nuestra
our
capacidad
sovereignty
colectiva
and
de
our
defender nuestro derecho al
capacity
futuro,
to
de
defend our
liberar
right
a
to
nuestros
future,
dirigentes secuestrados, prisioneros de guerra,
to
y garantizar
bring
la
back our
felicidad
leaders who have
y
been
la paz
kidnapped, prisoners
de
of
todo el
war,
pueblo.
and guarantee the peace for the
Luchemos
whole
con
people.
inteligencia
Let's
y audacia
fight with
para lograr la
intelligence and
liberación
audacity
del presidente Nicolás
to
Maduro
achieve
y de la
the
diputada Silvia
liberation
Flores.
of President Nicolás Maduro
Tal
and
como el
lawmaker
señor
Cilia
Silvia y mi
Flores.
papá,
Just as
soy un
Celia and
militante
my dad
dispuesto a
taught
servir
me, I
en la
am a
defensa
militant
integral de
willing
los
to
intereses
serve
superiores de
in the
nuestro pueblo
defense
y de
of
nuestra
the
República
goods of our
Bolivariana de
peoples
Venezuela.
and the revolution,
Tengo la
Bolivarian
convicción
Revolution
de
of
que
Venezuela.
con
I
unión y
am
más unión,
convinced that with
con
unity and
unión
more
y más
unity,
unión, con unión y más
with
unión,
unity and more
nosotros
unity,
vamos a
we
vencer.
will be
Tal vez
victorious.
secuestraron a Nicolás
Maybe
y a Cilia,
they kidnapped
pero no
Nicolas and
secuestraron
Celia,
la
but they
conciencia de
didn't
un pueblo que ha
kidnap the
decidido ser libre.
conscience of a
A ti,
people that has decided to be
Delcy,
free.
Eloína, mi apoyo incondicional
To
a la
Delcy,
tarea
my
tan dura que te toca.
unconditional
Cuenta
support
conmigo, cuenta con
for
mi
the
familia,
hard
cuenta con nuestra
duty
firmeza
that you need
para
to
tomar los pasos correctos
do right
al
now.
frente
So
de
you
esta
have my full
responsabilidad
support
que
for
hoy te
the
toca
duty that
y
you have, the
estamos
great
firmes
responsibility
en
that
unidad
you have, and we
absoluta
are firm
para
in
lograr
great
los objetivos
unity
de la paz en
to
Venezuela,
achieve
de sacar
the
al país
objectives
adelante
of
y que
peace in
regresen
Venezuela,
Nicolás y Cilia.
to move on with our economic development, and for Nicolas and Celia to come back.
Al pueblo de Venezuela,
To the people of Venezuela,
gracias
thank you.
totales, dirían por ahí, gracias totales, los amamos,
Thank you.
los
We love
amamos
you.
mucho.
We
Paz,
love you so much.
democracia,
Peace,
soberanía,
democracy,
dignidad,
sovereignty,
unidad,
dignity,
lucha,
unity,
batalla y victoria.
struggle,
Y a ti, papá,
and victory. And to you,
te
my
digo,
dad, I tell you,
hiciste de todos nosotros
you did
una
of
familia
all of
gente
us,
fuerte,
of our
Aquí
family,
estamos,
great and strong people. We are
cumpliendo hasta
here.
que regrese.
We are here
La
with our
patria está
duties
en buenas
until you
manos,
come
papá.
back. The homeland is in
Pronto
good
nos
hands,
vamos a abrazar aquí
and
en
we will
Venezuela.
hug each other again here
Y
in
vas a ver a los
Venezuela.
muchachos,
And you
Silvia,
will see
los vas
the
a ver,
kids,
Silvia.
Celia. You will see
Nos
them
vamos a
again.
ver. Que viva Venezuela.
Long
que
live
viva la
Venezuela.
patria. Y aquí
Long
estamos
live the
firmes
homeland.
para lo que tengamos que hacer
We are
por
here for
nuestra patria.
anything that we need
Los
to do
amamos mucho.
for our
Muchas gracias.
homeland. We love you. Thank you very much.
Bien, escuchaban ustedes la intervención del diputado
Well, we listen to
Ernesto
this
Maduro
address
Guerra,
of Deputy
destacando la
Nicolás
marcha
Maduro,
para esta
who
junta
proposed for the
directiva.
presidency of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, and also proposed for the vice president, the first vice president and second vice presidency of the National Assembly, demanding a clear message of support and the return of President Nicolás Maduro and Cilia Flores. Let's continue to listen to the statements.
The year 2019 and 2020, difficult years, with political confrontation of the hardest ones in the streets of the country. We had and we were confronting maybe one of the most destructive pandemics that the humanity has ever faced. How to bring together the political conflict with a pandemic that was destroying the lives of human beings. in
que
that
tuvimos que enfrentar.
scene, in that context,
Un elemento importante que ha marcado la vida de
we
este
had
país,
an important
del
element that
continente y del
marked
mundo
the
a lo
life
largo
of this
de estos
country
años.
and the continent and the world.
Gobernaba para ese momento
At that
el actual
moment,
presidente de los
the
Estados
current
Unidos.
president of
El
the United
señor Donald
States,
Trump.
Donald Trump, was in office.
Teníamos un asedio
We had
a
a
este
siege
país.
against this country.
De manera permanente
In a permanent
aprobaban
manner, they
contra
were
Venezuela
approving against
sanciones
Venezuela
que
sanctions
afectaba de manera
that were
importante
affecting
a la vida nacional.
the national
Ya en
life.
el 2020
In
nos
2020,
amenazó con lanzarnos misiles
they
para acabar con
threatened
este país.
us with missiles to end the life of this country.
Que
He
tuviésemos
pretended
una visión distinta
that we
a
had
lo que cada venezolano
a
quería
different
hacer
vision
para ese momento.
of what every Venezuelan wanted to
Quiso
do
hacer
for
de
that
Venezuela
moment.
lo
He
que hizo
wanted
con
to do
Honduras.
with
Y
Venezuela
esa
what he did
Venezuela
with
de aquel
Honduras.
momento
But that Venezuela of that
rechazamos
moment, we
esa
rejected that policy.
Fuimos finalmente a unas elecciones
We went to an election, a parliamentary
el 6 de
elections,
diciembre de ese año
December 6th
2020.
of that year,
Que tuvo
2020,
uno de sus grandes
that
objetivos
had as one of
era
its main
acabar con la
objectives
dualidad de poder que
to
existía para
end
ese
the
momento.
duality of power that we had
Esa
at that
dualidad que nos
moment.
impuso
That
la comunidad
duality that
internacional
was
y
imposed
que
on us by the
nunca
international
supo cómo
community
salir
and
de ella.
never knew
Le
how
dimos
to
esa puerta
come
de
out of
salida
that.
a
We
esa
gave
comunidad
them that
internacional. Le
outing
dijimos al
door.
gobierno del señor Trump,
We
el
told the
camino de
government
este
of
país
Mr.
son
Trump
las elecciones.
that the road
Y
of this
esa
country were the elections.
consideración del momento fue muy
And that
importante,
consideration at that
que
moment was
permitió
very important because
decirle al
it
mundo
allowed
que no
for
era
us to tell the
posible
world
que un pueblo que
that
se
it
aprestaba
was
a elegir su
impossible
parlamento,
that a
que
people
estaba
that
en
was willing
elecciones,
to elect its
no era posible
parliament,
que fuera atacado
it couldn't be
militarmente como lo
militarily attacked
pretendió el señor Trump
as
en
Mr.
aquel-
Trump
en aquel
pretended at that moment.
momento. Terminado el año 2020,
When 2020 concluded,
a una asamblea
we
nacional
elected a National
que le
Assembly
dio institucionalidad al
that gave
país,
institutionality
que
to the
derrotó,
country,
sin duda
that
alguna, la
defeated
dualidad de poder.
that duality of power.
Pero a lo largo de estos 5 años,
But through
esa
this
asamblea
5
que
years,
concluyó ayer
that National Assembly that ended
tuvo
its
la
period
amenaza
yesterday
permanente
had the permanent
de
threat
esa administración,
of
de
that
las dos
administration,
administraciones,
of both
y
administrations.
finalmente regresa al poder
And finally, Mr. Trump comes back
y
to
nos
power,
encuentra
and he
a
finds
esa
us
asamblea
that
a la que
National
él quiso
Assembly
destruir,
that he
nos
wanted to
encuentra
destroy.
activos, y
He
habíamos,
finds us active.
sin duda alguna, reinstitucionalizado.
And we had reinstitutionalized the country without a
Esa
doubt.
es una historia
That
reciente,
is a recent history,
vivida por nosotros.
a history that is alive, that we have lived through it. Through those 5 years, we had all these
Fuimos
debates.
claros,
We
quién
were
era el señor
clear. We
sabíamos
were aware
que
of
venía a
who Donald Trump
desestructurar el
was.
mundo,
We knew
a
that he came to
liquidar el orden internacional basado en normas.
end with the international law and the international order based in norms, but we never imagined that he could violate his own constitution, that he could establish basically a dictatorship in the country that seems to be the democratic model for the world, but he did that. We saw that and we alerted this, and right now he finally manages to come inside our country because that's a reality, and with the hard reality for our people that was capable of kidnapping the president of this country and his wife, that we reject and condemn this fraction of the Democratic Alliance. It's unacceptable, and it'll be in the hands of this parliament from now on that we inaugurate to build with efforts and dedication once again the great road of our sovereignty. It is true. We have many struggles ahead in this terrain. And I say this to the government, to the majority of the seats: you cannot continue in solitary, thinking that you can do that struggle on your own. No. In the last legislature, we were capable of giving a political answer to the offensive of the United States, and that was to create the National Council for Sovereignty and Peace. You have a political answer right there, and it's right there that we need to build a serious unity, calling on all sectors, heading towards a great national pact that allows us for a 15-20-year-old plan to give the country with stability for a definite way, so that we do not fall in confrontation that weakens the institutionality of this country. They see us as weak. As we are inaugurating this parliament today, we are being strengthened for a constitutional effort that we've in charge with the acting president, Delcy Rodriguez. But she needs the strength of this parliament so that the government that is transitional now, as the Constitution mandates, has the enough strength to face the international aggression, the permanent aggression of Mr. Trump. This parliament that is being inaugurated today needs to help in that road, but I call on the majority that you cannot do this alone. Here is the shoulder of the Democratic Alliance to aid in that direction. So we propose 3 candidacies in that road that we want to use to build in this road, that you know, an extraordinary doctor for the presidency of the parliament, Ruben Lima, but with political strength, with political experience and a state vision to move through a difficult road that we are moving through. Also, we propose as first vice president José Brito, who has been an important representative of the regions of the country and also has an important political vision and state vision for these difficult times. And as second vice president, Deputy Alfonso Campo, who has an important experience that we know of in this parliament. As you see, 3 lawmakers, 3 leaders that come from the prior legislature and that know of this road, difficult and complex, but they never hesitated to strengthen and to make of this the great political element to strengthen the country. So it's not a single party power. So they have the responsibility that the country be more plural, the politics be more plural. So in that way, Comrade Soto Rojas leading this debate, that is our proposal from the Democratic Alliance. Thank you. We give the word to Stalin Gonzalez. Good day. Thank you. Our colleagues, lawmakers, certainly it's a difficult day for the nation. I think that the country is still worried about what is happening. Also, as this moment is difficult, it's important what is being said and what we are saying. We have the opinion of our bloc, and I have it in writing, so I will read it. Citizens, colleagues, lawmakers, the vote of this fraction is an act of loyalty for a nation that cannot wait anymore, and not an act of confrontation. We cannot join these proposals because in the last 5 years you have not legislated for Venezuelans. We are here to do this differently. We have the voice of millions who have been silenced, and those who needed to leave. And I want for my brothers and sisters outside to know that their suffering is being heard. We want to give light and voice to the problems of the country and not validate inertia. We cannot remain divided or polarized. Our differences need to find a common road, such as those who saved the Republic in the past did it and were able to found understanding measures. We have a clear north. The construction and strengthening of the institutionality of our state. We reaffirm that the struggle for our Venezuela allows us to remain here for all the democratic practices. Our road is the order that comes from here. Popular sovereignty, the guarantee to fundamental rights, and the defense of the interests of the nation. We will not be accomplices of an institutionality that is just of a shade. We believe in the law, in the votes, and the re-encounter of all Venezuelans. That is why we demand this stopping of the persecutions and the liberations of all political prisoners. In this road of reconstruction, we want the road to impulse an amnesty. Democracy is only necessary and possible if we continue forward in this road with no consequences. We have the possibility of building this as an important tool for citizenship. It's urgent to give the country answers. We need this parliament to give the answers to solve the problems. So in this situation, let's be clear. Time is not a non-renewable resource. We cannot give a blank check to any transitional process so that the well-being in this process is possible and sustainable. Consensus is not to be defeated, but it's the struggle for the Commonwealth and the searching of common roads in order to guarantee democracy and unity among the peoples. We reiterate, politics is good if we are serving the people. We want to solve the crisis of Venezuelan homes. We want emergency economical measures to give back the value of work to our families and strengthen the productive sectors. Sovereignty is more than a flag. It is the capacity of our people to live in dignity through its own efforts, and also to guarantee that Venezuelans do not need to flee the country. We want to reaffirm our sovereign principles. Our love for the country sends us to search for all democratic ways of continue the road. We want to represent that cry for change. We make of this space a way to defend that law, that democratic process, Thank you so much. And using the rules itself, we will submit our proposals in writing.
Cerrado el debate sobre este punto,
We close the debate on this
quiero
matter.
reconocer
I want to
que la
acknowledge
Asamblea Nacional
that the
dio
National
sus
Assembly
funciones
that
hasta el
was
día de ayer.
in order and in
Creo que lo
functions
hizo
until
bien en lo
yesterday,
fundamental.
I think that it did a good job in the
Pero
fundamental
Esta
principles.
nueva Asamblea
But this
Nacional,
new National Assembly,
el debate será
the debate
provechoso,
will be
extraordinario e
extraordinary
interesante,
and interesting,
porque hay que clarificar muchas
because
cosas.
we need to clarify a lot of things.
Hasta ahora,
Until this moment,
secretaria accidental,
Accidental Secretary,
sígnase leer la- no ha llegado aquí, tiene que llegar aquí.
Listening to the National Assembly as different sides of the nation presented their candidates for the presidency, the two vice presidency, as part of the ceremony of the installation of the Legislative Assembly legislation of 2026 to 2031. New 5 years to work for the peace and stability of the Venezuelan people. Let's continue.
Ciudadano director de debates. Hay dos propuestas en mesa
Director of debate. There are two proposals
para la
on the
presidencia
table, and they are the following: for the presidency of the National Assembly,
de la patria, el
on the
diputado
Homeland Bloc,
Jorge
Deputy
Jesús Rodríguez Gómez.
Jorge Rodriguez.
Por la oposición
For the Democratic Opposition,
diputado
Deputy
Rubén Lima.
Ruben Limas.
Todo ciudadano
This is
director
all
de debates.
citizen director of debate.
Vamos entonces a proceder de acuerdo a
Let's proceed in accordance with the rulings,
propuestas
in accordance to the proposals read,
por la última.
and we begin by the last.
Estén de acuerdo
Those that agree
como presidente
as for President of the National Assembly
para elegir
to elect Ruben Limas,
sirvan señalarlo con la
raise your hand.
evidente minoría.
A minority that is
Estén de
evident.
acuerdo
Those
para aprobar
in
como
favor
presidente de la
to
Asamblea
approve as
Nacional
President of the National Assembly,
al doctor
Dr. Jorge Rodriguez,
sirve señalarlo con la señal de
raise
costumbre.
your hands.
Evidente y determinante
An evident and
mayoría.
overwhelming majority approved. The deputies of the National Assembly are chanting that this is the truth that defends President Nicolas Maduro.
Vamos
Cada
a seguir con
plancha
el
ha
proceso.
procedido a presentar los integrantes para cada una de las juntas directivas propuestas. Se ha votado en este
People are
momento,
right now we are in the process. People are electing,
la
voting
decisión
on the
de,
proposals that were made for
acuerdo
different
patriótico a
positions of the director boards of the
venezolano.
National Assembly. We just saw by an overwhelming majority the deputies of the National Assembly elected Jorge Rodriguez as the president for the National Assembly for the next legislative year.
Para la primera vicepresidencia
For
de
the
la
first
Asamblea
vice presidency
Nacional,
of the National
por el
Assembly,
bloque de la
for
patria,
the
el
Homeland
diputado
Bloc, Deputy
Pedro
Pedro Infantes.
Aparicio. Por el bloque de
For
de la
the opposition, for the Democratic
el
Opposition
diputado
Bloc, Deputy
José Brito.
José Brito.
Procedimiento,
Following the same
los que estén de
procedure,
acuerdo
those in favor
para la primera
for
vicepresidencia,
the
José
first
Brito,
vice
por la señal
presidency
de
of
costumbre.
José Brito with the usual signal,
Evidente minoría.
an evident minority,
Lo que para elegir para la
to
segunda propuesta
elect the second proposal
para elegir
to
al diputado
elect
Pedro
Deputy
Infante,
Pedro
por la
Infante
señal de costumbre.
with the corresponding sign. an overwhelming majority.
Queda aprobada.
It is approved. Now, deputies of the National Assembly are chanting, "Long live the homeland, long live President Maduro." So now we have seen that the deputies, lawmakers have already voted for the presidency and the first vice president, which what remains is the second vice president. The officials elected for the as president was Jorge Rodriguez, and for the first vice presidency, Pedro Infante.
Propuesta que se ha hecho el día de hoy destaca como presidente del Parlamento venezolano al doctor Jorge Rodríguez, primer vicepresidente Pedro Infante y segunda vicepresidenta.
For the second vice presidency of the National Assembly, for the Homeland Bloc, Deputy Grecia Colmenares. For the Democratic Opposition, Deputy Alfonso Campos. So let's proceed with the corresponding action. Those in favor of Alfonso Campos, raise your hands. An evident minority. For those in favor for the second vice presidency, Deputy Grecia Colmenares. Overwhelming majority, it is approved.
Seguimos llevándoles los detalles de cómo se desarrolla esta jornada de instalación del periodo legislativo 2026-2031 desde el hemiciclo protocolar del Palacio Federal Legislativo.
Well, we just saw the deputies of the National Assembly elected directors boards for the next legislative year, and as part of the process of the installation of the next 5-year term of the legislative period for this National Assembly, which was elected, as we say, in last year's legislative elections. As after the votings of the different members of the National Assembly, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez was re-elected as President of the National Assembly, while Pedro Infante was elected as first Vice President of the National Assembly, and Grecia Colmenares as the second Vice President of the National Assembly, which they will hold this position for the next legislative year. We must recall that according to the rules of the National Assembly of Venezuela, the deputies are elected for a 4-year term, but the Board of Directors is elected for a 1-year term, and that is renewed every year and is elected at the beginning of every opening session of the year by the members of the National Assembly. Heirs of the anti-colonial causes of our liberators, liberators of America, and heirs of the cause of Bolivar and Commander Hugo Chavez. We greet with a lot of warmth the peoples of the world that are currently supporting Venezuela and ratify the solidarity of the peoples of the world in these moments, where we also greet with firmness and loyalty the legitimate president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, a worthy son of Commander Hugo Chavez and Commander Simón Bolívar, and first combatant deputy of this National Assembly, Celia Flores, a worthy heiress of the liberators of this land, Venezuelan women that always accompany us, all Venezuelan women, the cause of for the defense of our people, of our territory, and of our sovereignty. I also want to greet my colleagues, deputies, that at this time, this moment of history, ratified our loyalty, absolute loyalty to our Constitution and to the peace of this republic. On a day like today, history of humanity will be completely changed, as it was on the early hours of February 4th of that year, which signified the transformation for the history and humanity. the early hours of January 3rd, 2026 will change the course of humanity, because in the smile of Nicolás Maduro and in his hands is the message: the peoples of the world will triumph over the arrogance of those that aim to dominate these people, which defeated the last empire that dared to set foot on this soil. That's why Venezuelan youth that is part of this National Assembly celebrates that our people is on the streets defending the cause of this homeland, of our peace, of our sovereignty. Today, in the fulfillment of our Constitution and in the fulfillment of the rulings, the laws, on the debates, we must also congratulate the board that was just elected: Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, Deputy Pedro Infante, colleague Grecia Colmenares, and also this bloc of the homeland that make up the parties of the Great Patriotic Pulse Simon Bolivar. We also ratify our embrace, our commitment and accompaniment to Dr. teleSUR Rodriguez, who is acting president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. In accordance to what is established in our rules, in our rulings, we must postulate, several colleagues that have an impeccable track record in this parliament for the year 2026-2031. Office of the Secretary and Deputy Secretary. For the Secretary, the Homeland Front proposes a young Caracas woman lawyer graduated from University of Santa Maria, Maria Alejandra Hernandez, who held for the last 2 years this important responsibility as Secretary of our National Assembly, and for the responsibility of the Deputy Secretary of this National Assembly, Jose Omar Molina, also graduated in political sciences from the Central University of Venezuela, who also held different offices within the National Assembly, and that in the last legislative period, both Maria Alejandra and Jose Omar were important for the construction of this parliament that rescued the Bolivarian Revolution and enacted important laws for our people that recovered the institutionality of this space that had been stolen by the far right, to whom we ratified today in front of their arrogance that an eagle doesn't hunt flies. And we know that in the way of acting of these two colleagues is also the way of acting of a Venezuelan youth that is always willing to defend in life and struggle the Constitution of this homeland, our sovereignty, and President Nicolás Maduro. An embrace to the family of President Nicolás Maduro, an embrace to the family of the first combatant Cilia Flores, and an embrace to the people to whom we are loyal, as well as President Nicolás Maduro is loyal to these people. Long live the homeland, and we ratify to the world that we will triumph. Where we listen to the address of another deputy of the Great Patriotic Pulse proposing the secretary and subsecretary, which is the next office that is going to be elected in the board of directors of this National Assembly for 2026-2027 legislative year. This is a very difficult moment that we are living right now, and I would like to refer in first place to the pain, to the deep pain in the hearts of all Venezuelans for the people that passed away last January the 3rd. Those young men that were standing guard, those young men that safeguarded the President of the Republic.
Those are martyrs of the homeland.
y merecen nuestro respeto y
And
nuestro
they
reconocimiento.
deserve our respect, our
Este es un tema
recognition.
que va mucho más allá
This is a
de la
topic that
oposición
goes
y del
way
gobierno.
beyond the position or the
Como
government.
venezolano,
As
me siento
Venezuelan,
profundamente
I
afligido
feel
por los
deeply
hechos ocurridos en esa infausta madrugada,
sad for
en
the
ese infame
effects
ataque de una
of
potencia
that
extranjera
night,
contra
for
Venezuela.
that terrible attack
Ese
on a
dolor
foreign
también
power
debe
on the
unirnos
territory
como
of
nación,
Venezuela. That grief
como
needs to
república,
unite us
como parlamento,
as
como
nation, as a
representantes del
republic,
pueblo.
as a parliament, as
Este país
representatives
no
of the
aguanta una
people.
revancha más.
This
Este país no
country
aguanta una
cannot
venganza
tolerate
más.
one more vengeance.
Los venezolanos nos reclaman
Venezuelans are calling for unity.
unidad
Unity.
frente a la agresión extranjera.
In the face of
Podemos tener
foreign
diferencias.
aggression, we can
Las
have
hemos
our
tenido
differences. We
en la
have
Asamblea
had them
Nacional
in
que
the
venció
National
su mandato
Assembly that
en
ended
diciembre pasado. En
last
esos 5
December.
años
Those
tuvimos
5
debates muy
years,
duros,
we had very hard
pero
debates,
con mucho respeto y
but
con
with
reconocimiento
a lot of
de las
respect
diferencias y de la
and
pluralidad.
recognition of
Yo
differences
reclamo
and
para esta
plurality.
nueva
I
Asamblea
want for
Nacional
this new National
ese mismo
Assembly
respeto
that
para
same
la oposición en su
respect
conjunto,
for the
para la
opposition,
pluralidad, para la
for
diferencia de ideas.
plurality, for the
En la
difference of
medida en que
ideas,
aprendamos a compartir
in the way in which
y a
we
respetar
learn to share and
las
respect
disidencias, en esa
dissidencies.
medida seremos
In
mucho
that
más fuertes
measure,
como
we
nación
will be
frente a la
so
agresión
much
extranjera.
stronger as a
Y
nation
le digo
in
a
the
los
face
amigos
of
del
foreign
gobierno,
aggression. And I
ustedes no
say to
pueden
my friends
solos
in the government, you
frente a
cannot
lo
do
que
this
está
alone
ocurriendo.
in the face of what
Este
is
es un reto de
happening.
todos los venezolanos
This is a challenge of all Venezuelans.
y por eso hoy ratificamos
And that is why we ratify the commitment of this democratic opposition towards international, to a national interest over any differences. We will denounce, as we have, anything that we need to denounce, but we will also join in the defense of the nation in all places, in all events, in any circumstances. I also need to say that this act has a great importance for the preservation of the institutionality of the Republic, because this act is part of the continuity that the Venezuelan state requires in order to continue to have its sovereignty and order in the country. This parliament, as the last one did, has the challenge of navigating through turbulent times. Never before we saw in this continent such a savage aggression, so brutal, against a Latin American country on the hands of the largest power of the world. That wound is deep. That wound is deep, and we will not forget. While this happens, we need to be pragmatic. Patriotic pragmatism, nationalist pragmatism. And it's key to understand that here we need to respect all freedoms. We need to liberate all prisoners, political prisoners. Those Venezuelans are victims of the same tragedy, and as we have done in the previous assembly, we raise our voices so that we liberate all political prisoners that continue to be jailed away from their families. That's our commitment to this country, and that's our commitment to those boys that with bravery gave their sacrifice of their life on the night of January 3rd, 48 hours away. The flag of Venezuela is showing this national mourning day for these young people that gave their lives in this the imperialist aggression in this parliament, and to honor that act of bravery, of commitment to the country. We need to think in the correct procedures that are corresponding,
para el soporte y la atención de los familiares de
the
esas
support
víctimas.
of the families of those victims. We cannot forget our
Y esos muchachos
heroes,
son héroes de la
and
patria,
those
del país y de la república.
those people are heroes of the homeland of the country. I am sorry for the emotion in my words, but they respond to an authentic sentiment
Mi clamor,
of
mi
my
exigencia,
Venezuelan
mi
team.
llamado
That's why my call
que cese la confrontación estéril.
to
Que vamos
cease
a tener diferencias, por
sterile
supuesto que las vamos a tener,
confrontation. Of course, we're going to have differences,
pero en este momento,
but at this
ahora cada vez
moment,
la patria corre peligro. Venezuela
we
nunca había
are
estado tan sola en el contexto de las naciones
we are at
como lo está
risk.
ahora.
Venezuela had never been
No
as
podemos
alone in
darnos
the
el lujo
international
de ser
context
devorados
as we are
por la
right now.
sañita,
We
por el
cannot
odio, por
do
la
the
venganza,
luxury
por la revancha.
of following
El país nos
vengeance
está
and
observando
revenge. The country is observing us, and we need to show an example of unity and defense of the nation. I need to present and propose
a la abogada Gilmari Enríquez y para la subsecretaría a la ingeniera civil
the candidates for
sus nombres sean considerados.
the charges for them to be considered by this chamber. Thank you.
Señora secretaria, por favor, sírvase a señalar la
Secretary,
propuesta de mesa para vamos a proceder a la
Ciudadano.
votación.
give us the proposals for the voting.
Ciudadano director de debates. Hay propuestas
Citizens,
en mesa y
we
son las
have
siguientes.
proposals on the table.
El bloque de la patria propone
The
para la
Homeland
secretaría
Bloc
a la
proposes
ciudadana
for
María
Secretary
Alejandra Hernández.
María Alejandra
Para la
Hernández,
subsecretaría,
for
al
Subsecretary
ciudadano José Omar Molina.
José Omar Molina,
La oposición democrática propone
Democratic
para la
Opposition,
secretaría a la ciudadana
for Secretary
Enríquez.
Dilmari Enríquez,
Y para la subsecretaría,
and for Subsecretary,
a la ciudadana Mildred Fernández.
Mildred
Todo
Fernández.
ciudadano director de debates.
That is all.
Bien, en este momento desde el hemiciclo protocolar del
At
Palacio
this moment,
Federal Legislativo, ambas bancadas han presentado sus
Both benches of
propuestas.
Parliament have
El
presented the
secretario
proposals for
para el
the Secretary and Deputy Secretary for the National Parliament. We are going to proceed now. The National Assembly will proceed for the voting of said proposals to elect the Secretary and Deputy Secretary. So far, they have already elected the President and the two Vice Presidencies.
Gilmari, Velázquez, Enrique, con la señal de costumbre.
Let's decide with the customary signal on the Secretary proposal, an evident minority.
De acuerdo con la ciudadana María
Those
Alejandra
in favor, Citizen Maria Alejandra, for the Secretary for the Homeland Bloc,
aprobado
approved by an overwhelming majority.
El Parlamento venezolano ha votado el día de hoy esta nueva
So the National Assembly is voting on these new direct reports for the National Assembly for this legislative year 2026-2027 and elected Maria as the first Secretary of this National Assembly.
Pedro Infante en la segunda
So far, they have already voted the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, the first Vice President, Pedro Infantes. They're proceeding now to vote the second, the Deputy Secretary of the National Assembly. The deputy lawmakers will now proceed to vote for the opposition bloc proposal,
estén de acuerdo para
an
aprobar
evident minority for the opposition proposal. Those in favor for the Secretary for the Homeland Bloc, Jose Marcos,
subsecretarios.
for Deputy Secretary,
Mayoría evidente aprobado.
with a vast majority, it is approved. So with this vote, the National Assembly elected the directors' boards in all the different offices, both secretaries the president and the two vice presidency have been officially elected by the National Assembly for this next legislative year, 2026-2027. We must recall that today is the opening of the legislative term for 2026-2031, the next 5-year term of all deputies here in the National Assembly. But the directors board, according to the rulings of the National Assembly of Venezuela, is elected for a year period, and that director board has been officially elected by the corresponding procedures and according to the time scheduled by the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Now, as the inauguration of this National Assembly for the next 5-year terms, now the officers elected will be sworn in. According to Article 9, in accordance to the rulings, the director of the debate will swear in the position to the President of the National Assembly, and from there, the President will proceed to swear in the rest of the director board. All deputies present also be sworn in case of a constitutional moment. After, the President will declare install the National Assembly and will notify the people's power, the executive power, and the judicial power on it. This is all, Director of the debate. Then, let's proceed to the swearing in for President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez. So in accordance with the Article 9, we will proceed with swearing in ceremony.
Allow me a license to invite here to join me the son of our sister, our lawmaker, our brave Celia Flores, Yoser Gavidia Flores, and the son of our heart brother, the son of our leader, our hero, Nicolás Maduro Moros, our president. I invite Nicolás Ernesto Maduro Guerra.
El diputado Jorge Rodríguez Gómez ha llamado para este
Rodriguez
momento
has called
juramentación
on
a los
both sons, the sons of
del
President
presidente
Nicolás Maduro and first combatant Celia Flores, to be part of this swearing ceremony, as he's about to be sworn in by the director of debate as the President of the National Assembly for the year 2026-2027. That's the legislative year that begins today at the National Assembly, that is installed for the next 5 years. So this is all in accordance, of course, to the corresponding rulings of the National Assembly for the installation. And he will proceed now with swearing ceremony as we're seeing him doing his oath. Deputy Jorge Jesus Rodriguez Gomez, for the legislative period 2026-2027, in charge of the spokesperson of the People's Power, Astrid, for justice and peace, for businessmen, for workers of the oil industry, by the doctors, by students, for the communes, for the indigenous peoples, for militia. Do you swear before the gods of our forefathers, do you swear by your honor, by your homeland, before the glorious people of Venezuela, heir of the example of fight and struggle of our indigenous peoples, that have known how to resist and triumph over oppression of the empires of different times. A people heir of the legacy of the father of the homeland, Liberator Simón Bolívar, who led the destiny of 6 nations, freed by the exercise of his sword and strategies, tearing the veil that prevented us to see the light of freedom to never return to the darkness of imperial aggression. Do you so swear by the luminous example of Hugo Chávez and Nicolás Maduro, who have given everything for the worthy liberty of the Venezuelan homeland, teaching us to never be a colony of a foreign power? Do you swear to give all your efforts to defend national sovereignty in all aspects, to protect our homeland in the face of foreign aggression and guarantee the freedom of our people, to fulfill and make fulfill the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, its laws and rulings, to honor and defend the homeland, its symbols and cultural values, safeguard the integrity of our territory as guaranteed to the self-determination and defense of the interests of the nation, just as to exercise the duties and responsibilities that comes with your office as President of the National Assembly with honesty, loyalty, efficiency, efficacy, and love for the homeland. Do you so swear? I swear in the name of God Almighty. I swear for the Redeemer example of the Liberator of America, Simón Bolívar. I swear on my honor. I swear on our sacred history. I swear on my sons, Lucía, Juan Pedro, Matías, and Lucas. I swear on the homeland. I swear on the bravery and the blood that has been shed of our soldiers fallen in the despicable acts that occurred last January 3rd. I swear on the life that our homeland deserves. I swear on the peace that we will build together, that I would not rest until see fulfill the purposes assigned to me as President of the National Assembly. We fulfill and respect the Constitution of the Republic of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Will fulfill the laws of the Republic. Will exercise the office that the Constitution grants to the National Assembly of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. But above all, it will insist that this space is an area for dialogue, for fruitful dialogue, a space for the confrontation of ideas, and mainly a space for national unity that allows us to face the challenges, obstacles, enemies, and aggression. You'll have in me a president for the National Assembly that will not fear dialogue, but that will also demand discipline and respect for the others' opinions. I swear that this moment, this difficult moment for the homeland, that this moment where people ask themselves what's going to be our destiny and what will happen to our leaders, we can say we must have trust that together we will always triumph. I swear this. If you do so, may the homeland and the people recognize it. In the contrary, may you condemn for it. You have been sworn in as the President of the National Assembly of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for the term 2026-2027 with all the corresponding constitutional prerogatives and legal prerogatives. Well, we just witnessed live the swearing-in ceremony of Jorge Rodriguez Gomez as President of the National Assembly of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for this year legislative period of 1 year, 2026-2027. We saw him being accompanied by different sectors of the Venezuelan country in part of this swearing-in ceremony. Now, according to the protocols of the swearing-in ceremonies for the different elected offices, we will proceed with the swearing-in of the vice presidencies and secretaries. We saw in his swearing-in ceremony Jorge Rodriguez's commitment to continue strengthening the sovereignty of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. So once, as we were saying, as the President of the National Assembly has been sworn in, he will take over as the leader of this session of the installation of the National Assembly, taking over from the Director of Debates, and will then proceed to swearing in of the two vice presidents and the secretaries of the National Assembly.
Les detallamos el proceso legislativo que se da en este momento desde la Casa de las Leyes de nuestro país. Una vez ha sido juramentado
So now, the President of the National Assembly will proceed with swearing in the first Vice President and second Vice President that was elected by a majority vote here within the National Assembly previously during this day of the opening legislative procedures. Now we are seeing the President of the National Assembly swearing in the first Vice President of the Assembly. Do you swear before God Almighty? Do you swear on the bloods of the liberators of America? Do you swear on the bones of our grandparents and fathers, of our first forefathers, of the full life bequeathed by the liberator founding fathers? Do you swear on your honor? Do you swear on life? Do you swear on peace? Do you swear on your sons, to whom we will build the future that they deserve? Do you swear to defend the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, its laws and rulings? Do you swear to defend with your life if necessary the sacred territory of the Venezuelan homeland, its sacred sky, its sacred rivers and seas? Do you swear to reject any form of foreign intervention against our country and against our people? And above all, do you swear to defend with all strength given by providence, peace of the Republic and the full life? Do you swear in the name of the humble people in all neighborhoods of our homeland, in the name of our indigenous peoples, of our Afro-descendant peoples, in the name of the humbles, in the name of our family, of our sons? We pledge to defend the sovereignty of this homeland, to defend the interests of this nation. We swear to give our greatest efforts, commitment, convictions, and our life if necessary to defend the sovereignty, independence, dignity of this unbreakable people, of this rebellious people, of this free people. But we also swear on the innocence of President Nicolas Maduro, the innocence of our Deputy Celia Flores, that we will fight tirelessly to rescue them and rescue the homeland, which is to return the rights of our people. To be free is to standing strong to guarantee the peace of the Republic, the national unity of all Venezuelans, but always with dignity, always with sovereignty. We swear to fulfill with our Constitution. We swear to fulfill our sacred commitment to fight next to our people, to continue being the Bolivarian homeland, free, great, beautiful, and prosperous. President, we swear this. We swear to fulfill with our Constitution, we swear to fulfill with our people and with our homeland.
If you do so, let God, the homeland, and providence, and our people, heroic people, reward you, dear Pedro. And if not, let them demand you. You are now first Vice President of the National Assembly of Venezuela. We've seen the first Vice President, Pedro Infante, being sworn in. He has assumed the commitment to this new period and also his commitment to demand and bring back the legitimate authorities of Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro Moros. Now, they're calling on Grecia Colmenares for the swearing-in process. Do you swear, Grecia, in the name of God Almighty? Do you swear on the homeland and your honor? Do you swear for the youth of Venezuela? Do you swear for the example of the liberators of America? Do you swear for the great life that we will give to our sons and daughters and granddaughters as well, to abide by the Constitution of Venezuela? Do you swear to respect and make the laws be respected of the Republic? Do you swear to abide by and organize to the duties that are demanded of the Bolivarian National Assembly of Venezuela? Do you swear to defend our seas and rivers and to defend this people of women and men who are free and in national unity, will guide us to a splendorous future that we deserve and that will allow us to overcome the darkness of these times? Do you swear it? I swear on God Almighty and the spirit of our peoples and natives peoples, in the face of the sacred fire that was lit by our liberators and today continues to shine. I swear on the light that was brought upon us by Commander Chagas that will never be turned off, and I swear as women and as part of the Venezuelan youth that we will defend our Constitution, that we will defend our laws, we will defend every corner, every point, every corner of our territory. Venezuela will be respected. I swear that we will do anything that is necessary for peace, for the dignity of a people. I swear that the people organized, the Venezuelan people in great unity, will give all the great steps in order for us to bring back the bravest of the brave, the President Nicolás Maduro Moros, and our first combatant and colleague lawmaker Cilia Flores. Today, more than ever, united in the conviction of the future that we deserve as Venezuelans, I swear for the dreams, for the future, for the shared destiny that we deserve, brave Venezuelans, that we will leave in our action all the necessary efforts so that Venezuela continues to be our territory, a territory of the brave, of the heroes, territory where God is looking at with blessings permanently. Long live Venezuela, and we swear that it will live forever. Grecia, let God, if you do so, God, the homeland and the people, the young people of Venezuela that sees themselves reflected in your words, reward you and not let them demand it from you. You are now second Vice President of the National Assembly of Venezuela.
Bien, ha sido juramentada la segunda vicepresidenta de la Asamblea Nacional, Grecia.
With this swearing ceremony, we saw the first and second vice presidents of the National Assembly be sworn in by the recently sworn in president of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, for the next legislative year 2026-2027, and take on this important role to establish for strengthening the laws of the country. And amidst this moment, this installation of the National Assembly in Venezuela, representing the strength and the governability that remains strong within the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, we also have information about President Nicolás Maduro and First Combatant Cilia Flores made their first statement in a New York court after they were kidnapped amidst the illegal criminal massive U.S. military aggression against Venezuela. The first statements of President Nicolás Maduro were clear, and I quote, "I am the president of Venezuela and I consider myself a prisoner of war. I was captured at my home in Caracas. I'm not guilty. I'm a decent man. I'm still the president of my country." Close quote. Let's continue with the National Assembly.
Ana, elected as Secretary of the National Assembly, and citizen José Omar Molina Palencia, in order to be sworn in as Subsecretary of the National Assembly.
Of the National Assembly. First was sworn in the President of the National Assembly by the Directors of Debates. The President of the National Assembly proceeds to swear in the two Vice Presidents, and now they are swearing in the Secretaries.
And citizen José Omar Molina Palencia, do you swear in the name of God Almighty? Do you swear for the immortal spirit of the Liberator of America, father of the homeland of the great Latin America, Simón Bolívar? Do you swear for peace and for life, for our daughters and sons and the youth of Venezuela, not to rest until you fulfill the duties that you have been committed to as Secretary and Subsecretary of the National Assembly of Venezuela, mainly in the irrestricted respect to our constitutions, our laws and rules of the Republic? Do you swear to insist in the defense of our sacred territory and the defense of this Parliament, so that it is the space for fructiferous debate, the dialogue, and the confrontation of ideas? Do you swear it? Yes, we do. If like this you do it, let Homeland God, our sons and daughters, reward you for it, and if not, let them demand it from you. You are now Secretary and Subsecretary of the Bolivarian National Assembly of Venezuela. Please go to your seat of work.
So with this swearing ceremony, the full Director Boards of the National Assembly for the year 2026-2027 has been sworn in, and we can say that the installation has been completed.
Inform you that my job has concluded. Thank you for this opportunity.
As we were saying, the installation has been completed. The acting secretary, before the swearing-in of the secretaries that will take office for the 2026-2027 term, now we heard task fulfilled returns to the plenary.
Commander, fighter of 1,000 battles, the man of ideas and actions, he who has always maintained righteousness, decency, honesty as great elements of his life. The youngest lawmaker within us, Fernando Sora Rojas, who today has been Director of Debate. We also thank our young lawmaker, Carolina García Carreño, who in a great way directed the process as acting secretary.
¿Cómo está?
Dear Secretary, how are you?
¿Ya cobró las prestaciones? No. Del pasado periodo.
Are you already in charge of your last period?
Ciudadana secretaria, siguiente punto
Secretary.
del orden del día.
Second point. President, we are now going to take the swearing in of the deputies of this new assembly this
Por
president.
favor, ciudadanos diputados y diputadas, sírvanse a ponerse de pie.
Please, lawmakers, stand up.
Honorables diputadas
Honorable
y diputados de la
lawmakers
Asamblea
of this
Nacional
National Assembly of the Republic of Venezuela,
frente
in
al
the
pueblo,
face of the
a los
people,
hombres y mujeres
the men and
de nuestro
women
vasto territorio nacional
of our
que en
great
este momento
territory
observan
that at this
la
moment
instalación de ley
are looking
nuestra
at the
Asamblea
installation,
Nacional
inauguration
como debe
of our
ocurrir
National Assembly as
cada
should
5 de
happen
enero
every
a las
January
11
5th
de la mañana
at
después
11
de
a.m.
que se hayan realizado
after
los comicios correspondientes
the
para escoger a los diputados y
elections
diputadas por lista
of
nacional,
the
los diputados y
parliamentarians
diputadas por
on the
listas
national
regionales
list,
y a los
parliamentarians
diputados
on
y
regional
diputadas
lists,
por circunscripciones
and lawmakers
nominales.
for specific
Frente
circumscriptions.
al ejemplo inmortal del libertador de
On
América,
the
Simón
immortal
Bolívar,
example of the
Juran
liberator
ustedes
Simón Bolívar, do you
cumplir
swear
y hacer cumplir la
to abide
Constitución
by
y
and
las leyes de la República?
ensure
Juran
the
ustedes
laws of the Republic?
cumplir
Do you
con
swear
las funciones contraloras
to
de la
abide by
Asamblea
the
Nacional de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela
of the
y
National Assembly of
las otras
Venezuela
responsabilidades
and other
que le asigna
responsibilities
la Constitución,
that are assigned by the
especialmente en lo
Constitution,
referente al
especially
control y selección de
in
los
what has
otros
to do with the
órganos del
control
poder
and selection
público
of
venezolano.
other orders
¿Juran ustedes cumplir
of the
y hacer
Venezuelan
cumplir
power. Do you
las
swear
leyes y
to abide by
reglamentos
and
de la
enforce
República,
the
así como
laws
ser
of the
celosos
Republic
garantes
and
de la
also
institucionalidad
to
democrática de
ensure
Venezuela?
the
¿Juran proteger
democratic
el sagrado
institutionality of
territorio de
Venezuela?
nuestra
Do you
patria,
swear to protect
sus
the
cielos
sacred
sagrados,
territory
sus
of
mares
Venezuela,
y ríos?
its
¿Lo
skies,
juran?
rivers, and seas? Do you swear it?
Y
Yes,
así
we
lo
swear.
hicieren, que Dios y la
If like
patria
this you do this,
os lo premie.
let God and the homeland reward you, and if not, let them demand it. You are formally now deputies of the National Assembly for the period 2026-2030. You can sit down now.
Bien, como parte de esta jornada
Well, with this
legislativa,
swearing-in ceremony, it's been official the installation of the National Assembly of all its deputies, elected deputies, for the 5-year term 2026-2031, and also the inauguration of the Directors Board of the National Assembly for the first year of this 5-year term. And with this, the ceremony comes to a close. We recall that that Jorge Rodriguez was re-elected president of the National Assembly, and Pedro Infantes, the first vice president, and Grace as the second vice president, who are going to be presiding over the National Assembly for the next year, as we were saying, term 2026-2027. Let's listen now to the statements of Jorge Rodriguez.
Lawmakers who have been sworn in for this National Assembly of Venezuela, those who make our laws, our rules, and control our democratic institutionality of the Republic, independently of the ballot in which we have been elected as lawmakers, independently of our own condition, of our beliefs or religions, of the development of our own personal history. These are times in which we are calling upon all of you to national unity, for the respect of what is ours, for the Venezuelan life, of Venezuelan identity, of what gave the freedom to this American continent. These are times in which we need to strengthen what we are. These are times in which we need to strengthen in our deepest values, the values that were inherited to us by the liberators and founders of the fatherland. We need to guarantee the will of this people of 30 million people. We need to guarantee those dreams, those expectations, and their needs and dreams of a life and peace. We need to guarantee our prosperity, the prosperity we need to build together. And even though we can think differently one from the other, I can say from the deepest bottom of my heart that at least me, Jorge Jesus Rodriguez, as a lawmaker, as a man of this homeland, as father of my 4 sons and daughters, as a person that loves deeply this sacred land, that my main role in the coming days, my role as a man, as a deputy, as president of this National Assembly, will be to go to all forums, all procedures, in order to achieve the safe return of my president, my brother, Nicolás Maduro Moros.
Que los esfuerzos
Let the efforts
desde nuestras propias capacidades,
from our own capacities,
que los esfuerzos
that the efforts
desde nuestro deseo
from our deepest
que
desires
nuestra patria crezca
is that our homeland
prospere,
grows
no
and be
deben
prosperous.
detenerse, incluso
Those desires should
con el
not
mayor
be
de los
stopped,
obstáculos.
even through the hardest of
Más allá de los
obstacles,
obstáculos,
even
no hay
beyond
una diputada
those
en esta
obstacles. There's a lawmaker missing
allá de
from
los obstáculos,
this parliament.
hay una curul allí
There's
que
a seat
corresponde
there
a mi hermana
that
Cilia
belongs to
Flores
my
de
sister
Maduro.
Cilia Flores de Maduro.
Buscamos y conseguimos
And while we
recuperar a
search
Cilia,
and we
que en su espacio, en
achieve
su curul,
the safe return of Cilia for that seat,
nos recuerde de forma permanente.
let a red rose remember her permanently, because we owe her bravery, we owe her righteousness, and that debt will always only be paid when she returns and she is here with all of us.
Escuché la voz de algunos diputados
I heard the voice of some of the deputies
candidaturas a la Junta Directiva
in
de la
their moment
Asamblea,
to speak when they were presenting their proposals,
a las voces de algunos diputados de oposición, pero sobre
in
todo
the
me
voices
uno
of some
a la voz
of
de
the
todo el pueblo de Venezuela
deputies of the
que
opposition.
rinde
I
homenaje
unite
a
myself
nuestros héroes
with them
caídos el
who
pasado
were
de enero.
honoring those heroes that were killed
Un
at that
aplauso de vida.
great,
Pido un aplauso de
terrible
homenaje.
attack. I ask for an
Que las
applause,
lágrimas se conviertan
a-
en fuerza.
an homage,
Que las lágrimas
that
se
tears
conviertan en
become
entereza.
strength,
Que las lágrimas se conviertan
that tears
en certezas
become
de
certainty,
que lograremos construir la
that
paz.
we will manage to build peace.
Nunca
Never
Nunca
never
hemos buscado la guerra.
have we sought war. Never.
De este territorio sagrado,
From this sacred land,
jamás. Yo no sé qué otro país
I
del
don't know
planeta
what other country in the world can say
nuestra maravillosa condición.
that and have
Pero
that
de este
condition.
territorio sagrado,
But from this
jamás
sacred
ha
land,
salido un soldado,
never has a soldier come out.
tropa alguna,
Never
ha iniciado
any
una
troop has
incursión
started
a
any
conquistar ningún otro
incursion
territorio,
to
para subyugar
conquer
a
any
otro
other
territorio.
territory, to subjugate
Por el
any
contrario,
other territory. On the contrary,
de este territorio
from this
sagrado
sacred land,
salieron nuestros llaneros descalzos. De este territorio sagrado
our armies,
salieron nuestras patriotas
our
nuestros patriotas y nuestros patriotas.
patriots,
Y de la mano gigantesca del pequeño cuerpo de capitán
went
valiente
with
de
the
Simón
great
José
hand
Antonio
of
Bolívar
José
Palacios y Blanco, nació la libertad
Antonio
de todo el
Bolívar,
continente americano.
went out in order to give birth to the freedom of the entire continent.
Por el contrario,
On the contrary, we
amantes de la paz.
are
Y si es
lovers and
cierto que
defenders
la
of
paz
peace.
está amenazada,
And if peace is threatened as it is,
nuestro concurso en unidad, diputadas y
our
diputados,
role in unity,
tendrá que ser
lawmakers,
la consolidación de esa paz.
is the consolidation of that peace, but not the peace of the graveyards,
No la paz de los arrodillados,
not the peace of those who are kneeling
no la
down,
paz de los silenciosos,
not the peace of those who
paz
silence.
de los subyugados. Tiene que ser la única paz que los
It needs to be the
conocemos,
peace,
que es la
the
paz de
only
la
peace
libertad,
that Venezuelans know, the
que es la
peace
paz
of
de la vida,
freedom, the peace
que
of
es la paz de la
life,
esperanza,
the peace of
que
hope,
sobre todo es la paz con la que cuidamos
and the
a
peace
nuestro
with
sagrado
which
territorio.
we take care of our sacred land. From
De la Asamblea
here,
Nacional,
from the National
los
Assembly,
convocamos y las convocamos.
we
A todo el
summon
pueblo de
you,
Venezuela,
we call on you, the entire
en
people of
principio,
Venezuela,
partidos políticos de la oposición venezolana, que de
the
manera
political parties of the
variada se
opposition
encuentran hoy aquí
that
en
are
esta
here
Asamblea Nacional.
in this National Assembly,
Llamarlos al diálogo y al
to call on
intercambio
you
no es un
for
signo de
dialogue
debilidad,
and exchange. This
es
is
un
not
signo de
a
grandeza,
sign of weakness, it's a sign of
la
greatness.
oportunidad de
Let us
juntos
not
construir propuestas
go past the
políticas,
opportunity
sociales, económicas,
of
humanas.
building proposals
No
together.
desdeñemos la posibilidad
Let us
que
not
por muy diferente que pensemos,
let the opportunity pass,
que por muy distintos
even
que
if we
seamos,
think differently, even if we are different. Let us be able to find each other and come together in the days to come and be stronger, be
en
clearer
nuestro pensamiento,
in our thought.
o sea, más audaces.
That means to
No desdeñemos
have more
el
audacity.
llamado que estamos haciendo. Y
Let
lo
us
hacemos
know.
nuevamente.
Let us not
Un llamado
leave this
a un diálogo
opportunity
verdadero, fecundo, en
go
todos los
by
ámbitos.
to a true dialogue in all circumstances. This is the space for debate,
Pero también hay
the
un
National
pueblo
Assembly, but we
exige
also
ser
have a
escuchado.
people that is
Hay un
demanding
pueblo
to be
que
listened
quiere
to.
participar.
There's a people that wants to participate in that
No
debate.
dejemos en las paredes
Let us not
de este
leave that
hemiciclo.
people outside the
Insistamos
walls of this
en que
parliament.
podemos
Let's
llegar a acuerdos sobre
insist
elementos
that we
fundamentales
can reach agreements on
de la vida
fundamental
de la
topics of life of the Republic.
Con respeto, diputado,
With my respects, deputies and lawmakers,
perdóneme la intemperancia. Soy una persona un poco intemperante.
I beg your pardon.
No voy a aceptar
For my
shows en
temper.
la Asamblea Nacional.
I will not accept
No lo voy a aceptar.
any shows in my National Assembly, in this National
Los
Assembly.
shows en los circos
Shows need to
Este
go
recinto
to
se respeta.
the circus,
Así como no
and
permitiré
this parliament needs to be
el voceo de
respected, and
consignas
I
o
will
los
not
irrespetos a los diputados
allow
y diputados
the
de la oposición. Estas no son
the
horas
different ways of
en que damos
voicing
el derecho a opinar.
political
Estos son horas en que nos confrontemos con respeto,
confrontations.
con
These are
decencia
times
y con
in which
dignidad.
we need
Cuenten
to come together
con el
with
respeto, la
decency,
decencia
so
y la dignidad de la
you
Junta
can
Directiva de la
count
Asamblea
with the
Nacional y de la
decency and the
mayoría de la
respect
bancada de la
of the
patria.
board
Y si en algún
and
momento
our
sienten
majority bank,
que
and
no se está
if at any
cumpliendo
point you
con
think
estas palabras
that this is
con las que me
not
estoy
being
comprometiendo aquí frente al pueblo de Venezuela, no
done,
duden
these
en
words
hacérnoslas llegar
with
y
which
de
I'm
inmediato
committing myself,
tomaremos los correctivos.
please come
Estas
here
son
to
horas
say, and we will
de encontrarnos,
correct this. These are times
Estas son
in which
horas
we need to
de arrimar
find
hombros,
ourselves and come
porque
together,
cualquier cosa que venga de afuera
because
siempre será
anything
peor.
that comes from the outside
Porque
will always be
Los
worse.
terribles días
Because the
acabamos de
terrible
vivir
days that we have just
nos
lived
demuestran lo que hemos dicho muchas veces. Nos demuestran lo que
show
dijimos
what
cuando
we have
empezaron a aplicar sanciones
said
y cuando sectores
before
políticos de
and
este
what we
país
said when they
pedían
started applying
glamorosamente que se
sanctions,
acentuaran esas sanciones.
and
Son
they
los mismos
asked
que después
for
pidieron
this
acciones
sanctions to
militares
be
y balas
applied,
contra
and
venezolanos.
those were the same ones who asked for guns to be used upon Venezuela, and I have proof
Las
for
bombas
that.
no caen solo sobre las cabezas de los chavistas.
Bombs do not fall only in the heads of Chavisms.
Los cuerpos
The
jóvenes solo
wounds do not just go through the bodies of Chavist militants.
si un venezolano
And
muere en razón de la
independently,
violencia
if a Venezuelan
extranjera
dies at hands
es el
of
llanto
foreign
de la madre
violence,
de ese venezolano
the cry of that mother, of that Venezuelan, that will bring us
el
together.
llanto de la hija.
The cry of that wife, of that daughter, of that son.
Es una vulgaridad preguntar ¿y en qué
It's
van a
vulgar
votar?
to
¿Y por quién voto?
ask what side we are on and who
Venezolanos,
voted
son venezolanos
and who they voted for. They are Venezuelans. They are
y
heroes.
tenemos que hacer todo lo que podamos
And we need to
para
do
dar ejemplo,
anything within our
levantar nuestra
reach
acción y que nunca más vuelva
to show their example and that action and let this never happen again.
venezolanas y venezolanos.
Venezuelans,
Si hemos fallado
if we have failed
en el ejercicio de nuestras funciones,
in the
pedimos disculpas.
exercise of our
Seguramente habremos
functions,
fallado en
we beg
aspectos
forgiveness.
donde
We
no
have
debimos haber
most
fallado.
definitely failed in
Pero
some
nos
aspects,
comprometemos
but we commit
a estar
ourselves
atentos de nuestros errores
to be
y a
aware
corregir
of
el rumbo
our
en lo que sea
mistakes
necesario.
and correct what needs to be
Nos
corrected.
comprometemos
We
a
commit
buscar más a
ourselves
nuestro pueblo.
to
Nos
go find
comprometemos
our people even
a
more,
identificarnos con su dolor,
to
con su expectativa,
identify
con su esperanza,
their grievances and their
Nos comprometemos
expectations and their
a
hopes.
callarnos la boca
We commit
para
ourselves
escucharlos más,
to
para escuchar el llanto
stop
de la madre,
talking
pero
in
también
order to
la
listen to
sonrisa
them
de nuestras
more.
niñas y
The
nuestros niños,
cry of that mother,
para
but
escuchar el
also the
clamor de
laughter
nuestros
of our
trabajadores y
children
de nuestras
and the
trabajadoras,
cries of our
para saber qué es lo que
workers,
está pensando nuestra
to
juventud.
know what our
Muchas
youth is
veces
thinking about.
Nosotros, que ya llegamos
And
a la
sometimes
juventud más tardía, que ha
many
puesto a
of
nuestro
us
primer
who are
vicepresidente a llamarnos
reaching
pures,
the highest and elder
obliga
years,
incluso a aprender otro idioma.
we need to
Porque
even
resulta
learn
que
a
el
new
idioma ya no es el
language
mismo.
because language is not the same
Resulta que los
anymore.
jóvenes hablan con
The
códigos
young
distintos,
people have new codes
con códigos neoconstruidos
with
que nos
codes
obligan a abusar el
that have
oído
been rebuilt,
y
and we
poder
need to
escucharlo, porque el futuro
tune
es de ellos,
into
el
that
futuro ya no es
in
nuestro.
order to listen to them, because the future, it belongs to them. The future belongs to the
Como hay gestos
young people,
que trascienden
and that
la
is
historia
why,
del tiempo.
such as there are gestures that
Así
transcend
como
time,
la historia me absolverá.
as The history will absolve me exists. And as the for now existed as well, and struggle, battle, and victory existed, I bid you farewell with this gesture at this moment. United, we will win.
Bien, eran las
Gracias,
palabras.
diputadas y diputados.
Bien, eran las palabras del doctor Jorge Rodríguez, presidente del Parlamento venezolano,
who
ante esta primera
addressed the
intervención del
importance of the
Parlamento
unity for the National Assembly, for the political life of Venezuela right now, to face the challenges that are arising, the challenges that they must be overcome right now. And the only way to do so is through the unity and the commitment of the entire Venezuelan society in all different sectors to continue to defend and respect the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, with a clear message of unity, as we were saying, all united in defense of peace of the Venezuelan Republic. And with this is completed the full event for the installation of the National Assembly for the term, the 5-year term 2026-2031, and also the swearing of the Directors Board is also completed. The legislative process for the next year, the year 2026-2027. We must recall that the deputies are elected for 5 years and the Director Boards for a year.
El diputado Timoteo Zambrano, el
Timoteo Zambrano, Stalin González,
el diputado José Brito,
José Brito,
el diputado Antonio Ecarri,
Antonio
y el diputado
Ecarri, Bernabé Gutiérrez.
Para notificar la instalación de esta
In order to notify the inauguration of this National Assembly, we call on Pedro Carreño, María Elena Vega, Carolina Vega, Rosa León, Jorge Arreaza, Luis Parra, and Rubén Lima, my rival and colleague. To notify the electoral power, we command Melvin Maldonado, Deputy Gloria Castillo, Deputy Vice President Grecia Colmenares. We will substitute that for another one due to the Vice Presidency charge. And also to notify, we command Giuseppe Alessandro Bello, Wilman Soteldo, Jason Guzman, Kenny Paola Garcia, Alfonso Campos, and Luis Augusto Romero. I wanted to make an invitation before we end this session. The first one, just as it is done every time that the National Assembly is inaugurated every 5 years, we invite you to head to the stairs where you have the bust of the Father of the Homeland in order to take the official picture of the National Assembly of Venezuela. Also to inform you that we'll have session tomorrow, Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. as always. We hope that in this new parliament, so fresh, that the deputies and lawmakers will be on time. I hope that God hears us and blesses us with punctuality. And with special guests today, we'll go to the Triptycho Salon. We'll proceed with the mandate of the Constitutional Chamber of the Supreme Court. Will swear in acting President, lawyer Delcy Rodriguez, in this moment.
Agotada la materia de la sesión de instalación, ciudadano presidente.
We've closed
En
the
consecuencia,
inauguration.
se levanta la sesión, quedan todas y todos
The
convocados
session has
para
been
mañana,
closed.
martes
Tomorrow,
6 de enero,
Tuesday,
a las 2:30 de la tarde.
2:30 p.m. You are summoned.
Now the installation of the National Assembly for the next 5-year term of the legislative period has been completed. The Directors Board has been sworn in. All the deputies elected in last year's legislative elections were sworn in as well, and the President of the National Assembly gave his opening speech giving a clear message that the National Assembly these next 5 years must work to continue strengthening and preserve the unity and to bring closer the people of Venezuela, to make the people of Venezuela more participative in the whole process and to listen more and to continue preserving the sovereignty and protect the dignity of the Bolivarian Republic. As well, of course, they made clear that one of the main goals, one of the first objectives of this National Assembly, the President himself said that they would use all the necessary spaces, all the necessary mechanisms to ensure the safe return of President Nicolas Maduro and first combatant Celia Flores, who are currently kidnapped in the United States. And this topic regarding the kidnapping of the President of the Bolivarian Republic and the first combatant, the President Nicolas Maduro, they already made his first statements in front of a court in New York, where he said the following, and I quote, "I am President of Venezuela and I consider myself a prisoner of war. I was captured at my home in Caracas. I am not guilty. I am a decent man and I am still the President of my country." I close quote. These were the first statements of President Nicolas Maduro in front of that court in New York, where he declares himself innocent and continue committed with the project of the Bolivarian Revolution and to protect his innocence and to deny all charges that are being made on. Of course, denounce the illegality of the events that occurred in the early hours of Saturday, something that has also been denounced and condemned by the newly installed National Assembly. We'll continue with more updates coming up in upcoming news briefs, so stay tuned with teleSUR English to have the latest information regarding all the different topics and the current events happening in Venezuela.